Hey guys, Tink here. Today I'll provide some perspective on healing Mythic Gul'dan as a RSham. But before getting to the fight, I'll briefly cover our heal plan for Mythic Gul'dan. We used our major healing cooldowns for Hellfire in Phase 1, Harvest in Phase 2, and the Triple Essence Soak in Phase 3, given that each of these abilities do quite a bit of overall raid damage. We used Avenging Wrath and Ancestral Guidance as spot healing cooldowns for the Eyes of Gul'dan, as the Eyes only target 6 players, so it isn't so much about the whole damage on the raid, but only needed throughput on a select few targets. Lastly, we used our Healer Extra Action button on Empowered Bonds to have healers solo soak the Bonds of Fel and minimizing the raid movement on Phase 1. So with that, let's get into the fight. So one difference with Mythic Gul'dan versus Farouk is that he's going to pop out of his bubble right at the start. So I like using Cake or Shield Totem and some other heal over times to cast some heals at the start. We'll group up together to get the Bonds of Fel out, Lust, Spirit Link, and for a healer we like to move towards the left side of the boss to bait the ad out. The Hand of Gul'dan that spawns the ad only targets healers, as you can see there. For this next damage combo, I like to time my Cloud Burst to be cast and start charging around 7 seconds until before the first Liquid Hellfire. This allows me to pop Ancestral Guidance and have Cloud Burst expire right as the Hellfire hits across the whole raid. And so you can see here, I'm using the extra action button in the scattering field to break two people out of the Bonds of Fel. And so we'll try to group up together so right before the bonds cast, we're all shot back in the same direction. How that works is based upon where you are relative to Gul'dan in the center of the room. And so here we have the second Hellfire cast into Eyes of Gul'dan, and Aruga is using his Aura Mastery to keep the raid topped up on that Hellfire cast. We'll have our next Empowered Bonds of Fel, which we weren't as grouped together as we should have been. But thankfully the other two people had immunities, so Aruga only needed to break me out for Scattering Field. The third Hellfire cast is going to be an Empowered Liquid Hellfire, where ranged need to bait it out. It doesn't target healers, only targets ranged DPS. And I'm dropping my Healing Tide at this point. The raid will shift clockwise to give some more space for the next Empowered Hellfire. The one thing to note at this time period is that the Eyes spawn and we also get the Bonds of Fel shortly after. So it's important to stay grouped together but also spread out enough that you can move quickly to avoid cleaving each other. The Empowered Bonds of Fel, Empowered Liquid Hellfire comes out now. And one thing, I delay my Cloud Burst a little bit just so that it can be used in conjunction with Ancestral Guidance, just to multiply the final proc of the Cloud Burst. This is mostly since the next time I plan to use Ancestral Guidance is for the third Empowered Eye, and so I have some flexibility of trying to figure out, trying to weave in where I can use that cooldown one more time. And so this is the start of Phase 2. There's a lot of movement with running around for flames, for the winds, for spreading out for the Eyes of Gul'dan. We have two groups, one on the left, one on the right, to make sure that the range are spread out appropriately, and make sure that the healers can cover the range, taking out the flames as well as when they're targeted by the eyes. So in terms of soaking the souls in the well, we have a Demon Hunter and our Holy Paladin do the soaking on the first set before the first Black Harvest. So you can see all the souls being soaked there. Black Harvest normally does around 3 million damage, so it's a good opportunity to use healing cooldowns, as Fluffy just used her Trank on the first Black Harvest per plan. And we enter in the first Storm of the Destroyer, I believe. And what you can see here is you take very little damage if you don't get hit by the explosion of Flames of Sargeras or the Fire on the Ground afterwards. And so you can stand really close to keep that stuff grouped together. We get pushed around a little bit right before the second Black Harvest. And we have the 2 soakers plus the tank in there soaking souls for Black Harvest. And so after this Black Harvest, we're going to get pushed, we're going to go to the top for our Storm of the Destroyer, and we're going to get our Empowered Eye. This is where I am planning to use my Ancestral Guidance as a spot healing cooldown. So I'm going to prep a Cloudburst into Ancestral Guidance to keep those who are targeted topped up. One thing to note after this is that the 4th Empowered Eye comes up pretty quickly, so it's important to keep the range topped up in case that they do get targeted by the 4th eye rather. That comes pretty quickly afterwards. After the 4th eye, we're going to get pushed back down, and that's after the winds and storm comes the 3rd Black Harvest. And so it's pretty hard to soak all the souls with 3 soakers, given the amount of movement of the winds and storms. So we've always planned to use Link and Tide to help us through the additional damage that we take. So in this pull we had 4 extra souls, which equates to about 2.4 million extra damage. After the 3rd Black Harvest, basically the only thing you have to worry about is flames. You don't need to soak any of the souls in the soul well, and you burn Gul'dan down to 10%, and Khadgar starts channeling to restore Illidan. This is a good time to start drinking in between the flames, since once Gul'dan dies and Illidan awakens, he doesn't knock back on the whole raid, so that has interrupted my drink a few times as we were learning this fight. And so Gul'dan dies, we skip the Storm into Empower Eyes combo, which is a little bit tough to do, so it's always nice to have the DPS to skip that part, and we get into phase 3. The main damage that goes on in phase 3 is the parasitic wounds. As you can see, Fluffy and Urzale have it. It does about 1 million damage per second for 6 seconds. And we'll also have Flame Crash, and the ads themselves will cast Chaos Seeds, which is just a ground effect that you just need to dodge out of. So damage in phase 3 is very dependent in terms of who's getting hit by the Chaos Seeds, and whether the tank is actually being able to pull the himself out to spawn Flame Crash away from the raid, since it does more damage based upon proximity. And so you can see me die there, and that's actually one of the bad combos that we have in phase 3, is when we have Parasitic goes out and Chaos Seeds and or Flame Crash happen simultaneously. So you can just have a large spike of damage on a single person. And I was just bad on moving out of the Chaos Seeds there. And so for the most part, you're just keeping people topped up for Chaos Seeds, Parasitic, and Flame Crash. Ideally, most of your raid is avoiding the Chaos Seeds, which is making a lot of our raid cooldowns. We decided to go more reactively in phase 3. Right here is the transition where we soak the Demonic Essence and we pop into the time stop. Soaking the Essence does about 1 million damage across the whole raid, so in the first cycle you actually don't need to do too much, because a 1 million damage across the whole raid isn't a lot. The next cycle we're going to soak 3 at a time, so that's 3 million damage coming out of a flame crash. So we plan to use Aura Mastery to top people up before the soak, and then Tide and Link during the soak. And so you can see Chaos Seeds and Flame Crash happen simultaneously. So those are just some of the timings where you can just be reactive in terms of how people are actually avoiding that damage or actually taking that damage. So Vision's going to be casted in 15 seconds, and we're going to get a Chaos Seeds into a Flame Crash into the Vision's cast. When Vision starts casting, we really need to start soaking and jumping to the time stop. And so this is just a good point to keep people topped up, cast the Link, cast Tide, and start soaking. Unfortunately, the positioning of that third one is kind of in the bubble, so it's a little bit hard for us to fully soak it. And half the raid actually just jumps in the bubble a little bit earlier. But we do get a 2-stack off. What happens is that each of the stacks amplifies the damage taken from the Demon Within. So this is your burn phase. Lust conveniently comes up again in this time period. So the boss just melts after the second Visions. From here on out, we don't plan on killing any of the ads. We don't plan on having a third time stop. So we just CC the ads with Banish. And when we have parasitic wounds, we move to the left leg with the melee on the right leg, so the melee can kill the parasitic wounds pretty quickly. But other than that, that's mostly the whole of the fight. There's some mechanics with Soul Sever where as the tank's needed, if they don't have a major cooldown, we can use externals on them to help them survive. What happens is that they can't really take they have a healing shield that prevents them from being healed until their soul is collected again. And here's a case where a Flame Crash hits the whole raid. Thankfully, because we have the ad CC, Chaos Seeds aren't coming out. It wasn't during a parasitic, so we're able to top people up, and Fluffy uses her Trank there to get everyone back up. And so that's a case of just having a bad damage come out and reactively heal that up. Other than that, that's basically the fight. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll be sure to try to answer them.